was a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a valley with grace out of this hole that I've dug for me.
This is the Valley of Grace podcast, helping women create an empowered new chapter of life. We are reclaiming our power and identity. We are breaking unhealthy relationship patterns, and we are building resilience and flourishing. This is episode 114, entitled Juneteenth Celebration. And when it comes to Juneteenth, most people would think, oh, well, this is a Black holiday. No, Juneteenth is a national holiday. It is part of our national history. And Juneteenth is celebrated because that was the day on June 19, 1865, when the slaves in Galveston, Texas were notified that they were free. A whole 2 years and something later than everyone else. So just imagine that, to be notified, to not know for 2 years that you were already granted freedom. Although we know that Christ granted us freedom on the cross. So sometimes we're not physically free, whether if some people that's incarcerated in jail, or if they were incarcerated, so to speak, by slavery. But Christ had already freed us. He freed our spirits and he freed our souls and freed our minds. Okay, so the first poem is entitled 3/5. At one point in history, Blacks were not even considered whole people. And so when you let that sink in, just thinking about that in general is something that make you go, and just kind of sit and ponder. We were not even a whole person. You think about when you do fractions in school. So this is 3/5. We were 3/5 of a person. When law was written, was there rehearsing? When God created, he set us free. Then man controlled through slavery. We were 3/5 of a person. The next poem is entitled, How Long? How long are we going to keep singing this song? I must work even harder just to get a little farther. How long are we going to keep singing this song? You get to common ground, just let me put you down. How long are we going to keep singing this song? They say the Emancipation Proclamation set us free. We say that Juneteenth came along and gave us victory. My God is holding the key. He fought for freedom, you see. How long till we start singing this song? And those two poems came from the book entitled My Blackness. The next set of poems is from a book that I just recently published, and it's entitled Digging Deep Down in Those Roots. When it comes to racism, it's a hot topic. No one wants to deal with it. No one wants to talk about it. And what happened last summer basically was like taking a Band-Aid and just ripping it off for the whole world to see what we as Blacks have endured for hundreds and hundreds of years. And what happens is we get to the point where you don't want to talk about it because other people become defensive. And in turn, when they become defensive, or if it's not defensiveness, it's trying to downplay or minimize what happened, then that makes us in turn hold close to our hearts and not want to share and X out vulnerability. And then in turn, the other parties become defensive because they feel that we should go ahead and open up and express ourselves. When we expressed ourselves, it did not have a good end result. And so for the poems in these books, it's going to be hard. In this one particular book, rather, it might be hard to hear. But the scripture tells us, and we shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. So I just pray that your hearts will be open, your minds and your hearts, and your souls will be open to be able to hear and then receive what's being said and not turn on the defense. Because it's not just whites turning defensive against blacks. It can be any race becoming defensive about stereotypes that they have placed and created in their minds as far as another race, okay? So these are the poems that are from digging deep down in those roots. And the first poem that I'm gonna read is entitled, Black Superwoman. Hold those tears in. Don't cry. Wipe your eyes. No time for that. You are a Black woman. Superwoman, super strong. Showing those emotions makes it all go so wrong. The problem with this logic is that it stems from the wrong base. It was given to our people at the auctioning block race. We can be strong, be super, be vulnerable, be all those things, be in charge of the nation, have a room in the West Wing. But our people must learn to release the emotions, the trauma that has begged us, hold it in like our mama, to shed the stigma that Blacks don't cry, don't break, don't release what's within. Release the lie, release the die, release the superwoman that's been pinned. The next poem is entitled, Crime is a Luxury. And I gave that particular poem that name is because as Blacks, because of our history of having to suppress our emotions during slavery, as the families were separated and that type of thing, and having to hold all of that in, and now having to deal with releasing those emotions and other people wondering why it's so hard, it becomes a luxury because of us being labeled angry Black woman, angry Black man, angry Black this or angry Black that, or being too emotional when we have 400 years of an emotional song deep down in our souls. So the name of this is Crime is a Luxury. Cry. Just cry. Just let it all out. You see, crying is a luxury from when slavery came about. Hold it in. Just suppress. Don't you say a mumbling word to your wife or your kids as we gather them like herds. The next poem is entitled From the Low End. And I wrote this poem because I grew up on 38th and Ellis. The building was 3837 South Ellis when my grandmother lived in the projects. And so that part of town we call the low end, okay? I'm a Black woman from the low end. It's what they call it, a section of town, you know? Down in the 30s and 40s for all those folks that's painted brown. On the south side of Chi-Town, because God granted me the wisdom, knowledge, direction to walk through oppression-driven strife. I've walked through everything down on the low end called the workplace. Ageism, sexism, racism, too many isms, to be told the truth. I'm a Black woman from the low end. It's what they call it, a section of town, you know, down in the 30s and 40s, for all those folks, all those women, all those Black folk painted brown. The next poem is entitled, That Thing Called Grief. And you know what? I don't care what race, nationality, ethnicity we are. Grief attacks all of us, okay? And the most civilized person is gonna be attacked by grief, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. We can suppress it and make ourselves sick, or we can welcome it like we welcome a friend and learn how to regulate it. So this one is entitled, That Thing Called Grief. Looting, rage, protesting in the streets. When we sit right down and think, they're all forms of that thing called grief. It grabs you in the chest, makes the wise act so wild. It chokes into the reserve, make them look just like a little child. Its name is grief. Yeah, I said it. And you better be careful while you judge it. For come up behind you and up and blind you, give your insides quite a nudging. The next poem is entitled The 99. And this poem I dedicated to George Floyd because of what happened to him last summer when he was held down for approximately 9 minutes, held down and murdered. We say Black Lives Matter. Or do they really? Do we think that God cares about all his children? Even the one that was held down for 9? Or do we think that he's just fine, just happy, so happy with only the 99? A lot to ponder there, isn't it? The next poem that I want to read is entitled, When the Words Were Gone. And sometimes things are so intense, so traumatic, there's no way for you to even describe it. The words are just not there. The slaves sang when their words were gone, when they were taken captive, all in the night's wrong, but they kept singing, like Hannah when she prayed and prayed for that baby until Samuel was born. They sang and they sang till their Moses showed up, and their words weren't gone, because they all could say was sing their new song, We's free. The next poem is entitled Rubbing and Massaging Their Skin. Now this poem I wrote because I wanted people to understand the relationship between Black mothers and their babies and their children, Black mothers and caring for the skin of their children. There's a bond that connects there. All the Black folks know about the Vaseline. It's the one thing we can't do without. Goes on the elbows, the lips, the face and hair, all over the body, and those heels if you dare. When you see Black folks with Vaseline, never ask what they're gonna do with it. It's multi-purpose, a must, passed down from generation to generation. I overdid it when my kids were little. Pistol said I had their faces shining like grease monkeys. Thought it was okay until I saw pictures of their shining faces wearing that Vaseline so proudly. My kids leaning against their wooden rocking horses, hoping one day that they can pass down the rules to their kids. The stories of how the Black mamas piled it on, rubbing and massaging their skin and kissing the babies on their bottoms, then rubbing and massaging their skin and kissing the bumps and the bruises, then rubbing and massaging their skin and kissing their teenage heartbreaks away, then rubbing and massaging their skin and giving their hands in marriage, then rubbing and massaging their skin and watching their grandbabies come into the world, and rubbing and massaging their skin and kissing their bottoms. I got 3 more poems for you. The next two might be a little bit hard to hear. It also shows the relationship of the Black mamas with the skin, but it also deals with a deeper level. Blacks being killed, police brutality. And it's something we don't want to think about, but it's the truth. And we shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. This one is called That Black Girl. That Black girl, she didn't make it, taken away by society, who didn't value her or her mama, who rubbed her body down in Vaseline before she left out the door. She lost her life to a traffic stop. The Blacks are hurt. They hurt because they all feel that it was their daughter, their baby, their nana, their daughter with blue black skin and locks in her long flowing hair, and navigating the high school world as she danced and twirled and pop-locked and kissed her daddy goodnight at home. That black girl, mama's baby girl, is gone, and no explanation in the world can bring her back. But she runs in the arms of her savior. He welcomes her home, but society didn't welcome her. And the next one is entitled That Black Boy. That black boy whose dad showed him the ropes, but that boy made one wrong move. He decided to answer his phone. That one decision meant that the popos thought he should be gone. He was that black boy, that ashy boy, is what his mama called him when they were at home in their secret haven. And he had moisturized his body, and his elbows and heels were screaming for help. That black boy whose twisties were now long and flowing. He was hoping to go to Morehouse, learn how to navigate his life as a black man. That black boy, that teenage boy, is gone. And now his mom and dad are wondering, where in the world did we go wrong? I'm getting a little choked up myself on that one, both of those last two. This last one is entitled Digging Deep Down in Those Roots. Same title as this book here. Digging deep down in those roots. But what does that mean? Going to the beginning, the moment of sinning, when our nation did its thing. Digging deep down in those roots. But what does that mean? Knowing the paths that you are walking and the language you are talking will not define your entire being. Digging deep down in those roots. But what does that mean? Savoring the gifts you've been given. Knowing that life is worth living and letting it sink into your seams. Digging deep down in those roots. But what does that mean? Walking and wailing till grief has taken over. Linking with black arms and black heads and black shoulders. Standing so strong when you know you've been wrong. Praying with our people, way to God's holy steeple. Praying so long with our 400-year song, digging and digging till there's no more reneging, and you're digging deep down in those roots. Thank you.
Your grace never was the same after he had died. Love that refines. So much I wish I could give your love, that you took the price to give me that life, and now it's never gonna fade away. When I see I need more of him, he whispers the sweetest of mercies upon my ears, and I won't go back the way it was again, again, again. And now a valley of grace where things would change. I've seen the light, so valley of grace where things have changed. Oh, I've seen so much for me.